Hi there, everyone. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're back today to do, so I guess it's night now, so we're here to do the episode of the new show that Ben and me are replacing Ben's album challenge with, and it's going to be called Two Musical Things That Have Some Commonality. And I don't know if it'll end up that way when I put it up on the board, but that's currently where I want to go with the title. So we have for this week, so what that basically means before I get going is that I'll be doing two things. He's going to give me two things, two guitarists or two drummers or two albums or two bands or two something that, and they have some commonality with each other that will allow me to discuss the two albums together or whatever. In this case, it's two albums. He's chosen Queen's A Day at the Races and A Night at the Opera. And this one isn't as easy to see. Queen's A Night at the Opera. So the first obvious, most commonality here between these two albums, other than the fact that they're both from the same band, they also came out one right after another. I believe The Day at the Races was first, and then, wait a minute. I got it backwards, sorry. The Night at the Opera was first, and The Day at the Races was second. I figured that was the case. I was just looking to make sure I didn't screw it up and get the years wrong. I think Night at the Opera was first, and it was released in 1975, where Day at the Races came next. It was released in 1976. Coincidentally, they did do my favorite album by Queen a few years later called News of the World. Anyways, I digress. So both of these were on, I believe they're on the A&M label. I know that Night at the Opera is, but I'm just not 100% sure Day at the Races is also on that same label. It doesn't really indicate if it is. It's weird. It's kind of funny. I did not know that. Anyways, I'm pretty sure they're both on the same label. Both really interesting albums. Of course, they have all the same players. They're from Queen. All four of the same guys are in this as they were, as they had been up until Freddie Mercury's passing. However, this album has, as you know, a lot of mixture of different sounds on it. Sorry. Trying to get closer so you can see it. So yeah, and you can see quite clearly they have very similar kind of middle cymbals, both rounded with lions on either side. A little bit different. There's a little bit of difference between the two, but basically there's not a whole lot of difference. They both have the eagles or the swans, I think they are, at the top. Just really good albums, both of them. So you got the other commonality is that they're both titles that they've taken from Marx Brothers films. So for those of you who don't know who the Marx Brothers were, and I'm not talking about Karl Marx. We know who he is and what he does. These were three brothers. There was actually five of them altogether, but three of them basically in the TV shows who were comedians who put out movies and I want to say in the late 50s or early 50s. I'm not quite sure of the time frame for those movies, but they basically featured Chico Marx, Harpo Marx, and Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx being, of course, the most famous one with a cigar. I was a fan of them. Growing up, I was a fan of those, the Stooges, Adam and Costello. Adam and Costello, and even a little bit further back with Charlie Chaplin, and I like that kind of stuff. And so they apparently liked it too, because they named two of their albums after two of their movies. So that's where the movie titles come from, for those of you who are curious about that. And they put out two in a row. So the first one, we're going to discuss a little bit about this one, and then I'll discuss a little bit the other, and then talk a little bit about them together. So I need my glasses here because the writing, especially on A Night at the Opera, is very small and hard to read without my glasses. So you got your Death on Two Legs, heavy song. You've got quite a few heavier songs on this album. Death on Two Legs. Where is it? I'm looking for it. I don't see it. I don't see it. Oh, that's weird. Oh, I'm in Love with My Car. These are two heavier tracks, also catchy as well. But you've got a lot of oddities, a lot of operish songs on this album. Things like Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon has that kind of boppity vaudeville sound to it. The same with Seaside Rendezvous, another kind of boppity vaudeville type of thing. And you've got the great legendary song Bohemian Rhapsody, which is a multitude of parts of different styles all meshed together. That's the way I see it. And of course, that's why they call it a rhapsody. So on the other album, which is Queen's Day at the Races, iconically that the Day at the Races is on a black album and the Night at the Opera is on a white album. I'm almost certain that was intentional. So you've got Tie Your Mother Down, White Man. These are pretty heavy tracks on this album. So you've got some heavy tracks, the same as you had on Night at the Opera. You have some kind of quirky songs here. Good Old Fashioned Lover Boy, The Millionaire's Waltz, and You Take My Breath Away. These are all kind of, I wouldn't say they're vaudeville, but they're definitely whimsical type of songs. Really different sounding. So they try to incorporate that kind of similarity that they did on Night at the Opera, because it came first, and they tried to continue that on this album a bit, where you have a lot of variety. And to me, it's not a coincidence that these are two of their better albums because of that attempt to do that. These are probably two of my favorite Queen albums. I'm not really sure which one I like better. Obviously, this one has the Bohemian Rhapsody, so most people are more famous with this. This one, however, does You Take My Breath Away is on here, and Tie Your Mother Down, which are fairly well-known Queen songs. Maybe not in the same league as Bohemian Rhapsody, but definitely up there. Both albums show a multitude of intense instrumentation and vocal harmonies. Really good, both albums for that. And you have some fine artwork here on both albums as well. So to me, I could choose either one and I would be happy to listen to it. Probably ultimately I think I prefer this one just a tiny bit more, but not so magnificently more that I would say that it blows it away. It certainly doesn't do that. There are some great guitar work on both of these albums. To me, I think Brian May's guitar work on either of these albums is among his best work at any point in their history. They're also pretty much coming to their prime at this point in time. So they were starting with the Night at the Opera and then Day at the Races, News of the World forward. They became a prominent band, well-known band after that part. Some people would say these bands are among the greatest rock band of all time. Having grown up with them and seen them in their prime and seen them as they were going along, I don't necessarily put them in among the top five bands of all time. I don't think they belong there. I think they're a great band. I think they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think they've come up with a lot of stuff, but they've had eras of disappointment to me as well. So where to me the great bands, the ones in the top five, they don't really have that era. not in a significant way in which Queen has later on in their career. However, both of these albums are immensely vocalized. There's a huge amount of vocalization, harmony, and Freddie Mercury's vocal in general. But they also use a lot of overdubbing, so you get a multitude of voices on some of these songs that sound like an orchestra or a choir, when really, in fact, it's just four guys, and they've repeated the same four vocals on top of each other to create an effect. They were quite big on that, and it's evident on these albums as well. So for me, that's the similarities. I guess the main difference between the two albums, to me, is just the songs in themselves. There are different songs on both albums. There's no repeat songs on either album, but just a very great deal of commonality here amongst these two albums. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of two music things that have commonalities. Today it was Queen's News of the World, and sorry, I did say it. I knew I was going to say it. Day at the Races and Night at the Opera. I don't know why I want to keep saying News of the World, but I guess my brain isn't fully functional all the time. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been fun to do. I'm looking forward to see what next he gives me, so that I can prepare myself for that. And this will, of course, be an episode that goes on weekly. We will do something every week, I think, unless it becomes too taxing and I may have to go bi-weekly, but we'll start out going weekly. And although next week we will not be doing this episode, because we have one last episode, which I did forget to mention even on this week. We have one last episode of My Favorite Drummers, which will come out next Sunday. So hopefully after that we will continue with this show regularly every week until it becomes obvious that we have to do something other than that. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Much appreciated. And don't forget to leave your comments. You can comment on anything I've said, or if you want to make a comparison or of some aspect of the album, or note some similarity of the albums that maybe I missed, by all means do it. And don't forget to hit the notification bell, and we'll be back next week with the final episode of My Favorite Drummers, final mini-series episode. Okay, so have yourself a good one. Take care. Goodbye.